And the message I try and get to people is we all need these leadership skills. And I've learned, if you follow your passion, you will find a way to start with one and bring it out to many. I grew up in a great home. I went to a great school. I had all the resources available to me, but it was one person, one night, one event changed the course of my life.
Welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for listening, or if you're joining us on YouTube, thanks for watching. I'm super excited today. I have a very special guest and a woman that I consider a friend and just always inspired by her heart and her passion. So I cannot wait for you all to meet Trisha. Trisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rhea. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you.
I'm glad, just super excited. You know, we've been trying to make this happen for a little while, but it's kind of one of those things that when the timing is right, everything falls into place. And that is certainly happening for you this year in a big way. So just tell us a little bit about what you want to share about anything about you, but specifically, I'd love to just dive right into your passion and your heart for this project.
Yes, let's do it. You're absolutely right. The timing has been everything. This has been a long journey. And if there's one thing I have learned through this, it is everything is in God's timing, His plan, His timing. And we're just really feeling blessed right now that God has opened the doors for us to do the work in our community that we are incredibly passionate about. I have worked with victims of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking on and off really since 1992. And I've worked in realms such as prevention, identification, restoration. I've been able to see many different aspects of trafficking and the work that's being done, as well as the work that still needs to be done. And that's what's brought us here today. And that we know that less than 1% of trafficking victims are ever even identified. And we know that trafficking is happening in every community across the country. We know people want to help. People just aren't necessarily sure where to start. It can feel like this just really big problem. How can I, as one person, have an impact? And our message at She's My Sister is the power for real change lies with every resident in every county across the nation. And so we've developed this organization to start with one program, one survivor in one community, and share it with others. So that way we can touch as many survivors as we possibly can across the nation.
I love that. And you know, you've had this vision and just this heart for this work for so long, but it's really come together in just a cool way this year, starting with, just really getting nailing down like the vision, the actual name, and even the logo, which is super cool. So just talk a little bit about that, how that's kind of come together recently.
Again, it definitely started with my passion based on what I have seen, but it really has been fueled by the support of the community. I have been sitting on this dream of being able to create a program for, as you know, several years now. And it really didn't come to fruition until I started getting out and engaging other members in the community. And the logo, what a great story. One of our members of our team just put a note out on Facebook in a women's group here in our local community. Hey, is there anyone that is interested in designing a logo for us? And from that, we made this amazing connection with this wonderful woman. She's the founder of Crown Digital Marketing. She volunteered to not only create our logo for us, but to do all of our branding for us, and seeing it come to life in this professional way that I never could have done on my own just really made it feel like this is real and it's exciting. And the other cool thing, we've been engaging with a group of young adults who are currently in high school. We're working with about 20 of these young adults, and they are learning how to create a nonprofit. And with that, they're using their time, tools, and talent to help us shape what does the branding look like? What logo should we go with? What colors matter? So it's been really fun to engage with the young adults to create this.
And they are super creative. I got a chance to just meet some of them, and wow, it is just incredible how engaged these young people are with a problem, but with a solution, right? So tell us just a little bit more about what She's My Sister does and the work that you are doing, what you're offering, that sort of thing.
Right. So She's My Sister. We are survivor focused, community empowered. With that being said, our focus is 100% on every survivor. Every survivor's journey and path to healing is going to be unique. And so we to tailor She's My Sister around every survivor that we meet. So we're pulling every resource that is out there and trying to come up with different pathways. So as we meet a survivor who, say, for instance, is not able to go to a residential facility for 30 days. Is there something we can do to at least get her in counseling? Can we cover the bill for that? So we want to tailor all of our programming around the survivors and their specific needs as we meet them. And we know that we have to do this with the support of the entire community. So we are creating a coalition right here in our very own community. We're launching in January with some of our city leaders. We're inviting anyone and everyone who we think really could have a driving force in getting this movement going. And together, we're going to see who can bring what to the table, what resources are out there. Let's combine them. Let's unite, and let's make real change in our community right now.
You know, I love that for so many reasons, but it's one of those things that I like to talk about is that so often we wait for the time to be perfect, or we won't get started because it's scary to start with one. And by that, I mean, a lot of times when we have a passion for a dream for making an impact or making a big difference, it's easy to envision yourself, you know, maybe touching hundreds of lives or speaking to thousands or writing a book that's a bestseller, right? But the scary thing is just start with one. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to necessarily have all the answers. You just have to get going and be willing to start small. And that's what I love. That's awesome.
You are absolutely right. I definitely felt that fear. I'm just one person, but then I recognize this is my passion. And I've learned, if you follow your passion, you will find a way to start with one and bring it out to many.
Yeah, that's so true. Because you and I have known each other for several years.
Yes.
And, you know, when I first met you, I think we just exchanged a few emails, and then we actually got to meet in person. And it was just like, I just immediately connected, and I just want to give you a hug because I could just see that caring come out of you, like that passion to make a difference in the lives of people. And it just resonates, right? It's just real. And when you see that, like you said, this is your passion. And I love that, because once you tap into that, it's that thing that you would do for free, right? It's that thing that you would do when you're not getting paid, or when you're having to do it on top of balancing a job or a relationship or a family, you know, all of those things. But when you're passionate about it, you find a way to make it happen. And I like to say you can make it happen or you can make an excuse, but you can't make it happen while you're making an excuse.
Right. That's exactly right. And we, at our church on Friday evening, we attended it was this really lovely lady celebration. And we had a keynote speaker by the name of Elizabeth Dixon. And she spoke about finding your purpose and your meaning. And going back to your point, once you dive into your purpose and your meaning, nothing can stop you. And that's how I feel right now. And we also know we have God on our side. So we have purpose, we have meaning, we have God, we have a mission, we have a plan. Most importantly, we have the people surrounding us to make it all come to fruition.
Yeah. Talk about the pledge that you have, because there's a little bit about that on the website, but just talk a little bit about that.
So we know our most powerful tool in eradicating trafficking is education. And we know that by talking to people, by being willing to engage in uncomfortable conversations, it could change or save someone's life or many lives. So our mission at She's My Sister is just to get people to start talking about it. Talk about it at home, talk about it at school. I mentioned that I'm working with these young adults, and I was sharing with them that the average age a child enters into trafficking here in Georgia is 14 years old. So these high school students, they are fired up. They're hearing this and they're asking me, if I'm the target, my age group, we are the target, how come this is the first time we are hearing about this? So we have got to start educating our youth about it. We need to educate in the schools. As I said, just conversations at home around the table. So we are just inviting people all throughout the state to take the pledge to simply talk to 5 people about sex trafficking. You can tell them what is sex trafficking. You can tell them who is being trafficked. You can tell them what it looks like, what that grooming process looks like. And then if you see something, say something. And you can learn all of those facts, what to look for. You can learn all of that at our website, she'smysister.org.
It's one of the things that I think is so critical, because it's been probably a year ago or so. One of the people that I know, one of the moms in our community, reached out to me because her daughter encountered someone who was a victim, who was being exploited. And she, the daughter didn't know how to help this person who was being exploited. So she reached out to her mom, but didn't want to share a lot of the details. But the mom reached out to me because she's like, I don't know what resources, I don't know what to do. Do I report this? Like, there was just no awareness of how to handle it. And so she reached out to me, and fortunately we were able to get that person some resources and get them out of that situation. But it was, number one, it was eye-opening for this mom, because she was like, I had no idea. She's like, I have 3 daughters, and one of my daughters has been actively just, affected by knowing somebody. And I had no idea it was happening, like, right here in our community. And it kind of really brought the situation home, and just highlighting that need for, we need to be aware that trafficking or exploitation is not necessarily the stereotypical someone kidnaps you off the street. I mean, that certainly could be one way, right? But talk about, in your experience, what are some other ways that it looks like or presents, or some things that we don't often think about the stereotypical trafficking?
You're absolutely right, Ria. There are still so many myths out there about trafficking. And the reality of it is, the majority of the women and children who are being trafficked, it's just happening right here. They're not, there are the cases where people are being kidnapped and brought over here from other countries, but the vast majority of people are being trafficked right here in our communities, in our high schools. Now it's a new thing that we have kids trafficking other kids in high schools. There's this need for the latest tennis shoes or iPhone or what have you, and there's a price tag associated with that. And well, if you do this sexual favor for my friend, he's going to give me X amount of dollars and I can take you out. And it's the story of girl meets boy, girl falls in love. And the reality too is, many of the women who are being trafficked were first victims of some sort of sexual exploitation or sexual assault. And we know that in America, 1 in 6 women will be the victim of a sexual assault at some point in time. So it is happening to our sisters. It is happening to our daughters. It is happening to the captain of the cheerleading squad. It is happening to the straight A student. It does not discriminate. Yes, there is a population that tends to be more vulnerable, a population that has access to fewer resources, especially our homeless youth. But 88% of children who have been rescued from trafficking report that they were attending school while they were being trafficked.
It's there again, it's just one of those things that we all have to be willing to get involved. I think it's Edmund Burke who said the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing.
Yes.
And it's easy to do nothing, right? It's more comfortable because we don't like to have these conversations. It's not comfortable to think that this is happening in our communities and our schools, and people that we know can be touched and affected, right? It's not comfortable to have those conversations. We don't like to think that there's monsters right here, right? It's easy to think that this is a problem in a big city far away, or only when the Super Bowl comes around, right? But it's happening day to day, and it absolutely is touching more lives than we could even possibly know, I'm sure.
You're absolutely right. That's another myth that is still out there. And I heard this from a community leader in a neighboring community to where I live. He said, "Ma'am, that's great work that you're doing, but we do not have that problem here.
Mm,
Sir, I have 20,191 sex for sale ads within a 25-mile radius of where we're standing that say you do have the problem here." And then it goes into the
mm,
question of, well, these sex for sale ads, aren't these adults who are choosing this lifestyle, also known as prostitutes? And there's a very gray area there. Again, we go back to the average age someone is brought into trafficking, 14 years old. No child is capable of willingly making that choice to become a sex worker. And then what happens when that child slips through the cracks, is not identified, is not given the resources to reclaim their freedom and get restoration and reclaim their life? They eventually turn 18. When they turn 18, now, in the eyes of many, they're a legal prostitute. We have to remember that that prostitute will ultimately, first and foremost, was a victim. And that is how we have to see these men, women, and these men and women who are being arrested for prostitution.
mm. I think that's so true, because I think one of the misconceptions is somebody gets into a prostitution lifestyle because they want to, right? And nobody growing up dreams of getting into that line of work. And that's one way that we know, no, this is usually something that people are turning to just out of desperation. Either they don't know about options or how to get out of that lifestyle, or they're being coerced in so many ways. And that's why, there again, we're kind of back to, the things that we won't talk about, we're giving more power over. And this is a great example of that.
You're absolutely right. Traffickers will set up wherever they can hide in plain sight. And so the community that refuses to acknowledge the harsh reality, those communities are more susceptible to allowing this crime to happen there, because they're going to go where they can go undetected, where they don't have people actively looking for the signs, where they don't have communities coming together as a coalition to take a stance against trafficking, where they're going in and they're having conversations with the youth to let them know these are the signs to look for to be grooming. And more cities and counties across the state, they are taking a hard stance on that. And so they're going to continue to push these traffickers out. Well, where are they going? They're going to be going out to these other smaller suburbs. So there is not a city or a county that is immune from this at all.
One of the things that you and I share is just a common interest in leadership. So I'm just switching gears a little bit, but I'd love to just pick your brain as you've gotten in touch with your passion, and this is, your cause, and you're founding the organization and making an impact. But talk a little bit about, from a leadership perspective, what have been some of the leadership challenges for you in leading this initiative?
Well, I think first and foremost, this is a tough conversation to get people engaged and to get their attention. It's, as my dad always says, well, you're not selling flowers, and so just getting people's interest has been challenging. So as a leader, I've had to really determine, how can I take this information and make it digestible? Because you have to know your audience. You and I, we're both big fans of the 7 Habits. And so I always go back to seek first to understand before being understood. So when we're going out and talking with communities, as a leader, I have to know this message is not going to be welcomed out of the gate, because no one wants to hear this is happening in my community. So I have to take that audience and understand, what do they need to hear from this? Well, they need to hear that they live in a safe city. They need to hear that they have the tools to take control of their city. So knowing what they want to hear, that is what I give them when I go in and speak. We let them know that if you turn a blind eye to this, crimes against people will go up. Crimes against persons or crimes against property will go up. So taking it back to how does it impact them personally? So knowing your audience, knowing how to deliver that information in a way that is digestible for your audience, that has definitely been our number one challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Have there been any, and we talked about the 7 habits, you touched on the 7 habits. What other leadership books have impacted your leadership journey or your leadership style?
Well, of course, I have to shout out to you, your books. I've read almost all of them, and I continue to buy them and give them as gifts. In fact, it's not just about people think leadership book, oh, this only pertains to me if I want to go be a CEO of some major company. And the message I try and get to people is we all need these leadership skills just in our lives, just to lead our own personal self, but then to lead our families, right? So much about the culture of our families is about the impact and influence that we have over our children. And so by learning these leadership tools, we just become better people. We become better neighbors. We become better parents. We just become better humans in general. So I would recommend anyone just looking to be the best version of themselves, pick up a book on leadership. You will find value in it.
That is so powerful. I love what you said there, is that this helps us be better parents and better people, right? And
yes,
yes, we want to lead what we're doing professionally, but how many of us want to influence our kids and grandkids to make better choices in life? And our spouse, we all want that influence on the personal level. And to me, that's as much or maybe more of a reason to learn and study leadership and influence is, yes, I can be effective at work, but I want to be effective at home as well.
absolutely.
I kind of bring up a point, but I think culture of a community, a lot of times we talk about culture of an organization, but we're talking about culture of a community. It absolutely does start with our children, right? And if I wish I had known some of these leadership skills earlier in my journey, my career would have been different, right? But just knowing how to lead me effectively earlier on would have been so powerful. So I love what you're talking about is passing this on and getting our kids and high schoolers and teenagers better equipped sooner.
Yes, absolutely. We all have the ability to be a real change maker in this world. And if going back to what we said in the very beginning, if you find your passion, what is it that you're driven to change? And then get those tools to do so, because you can have a dream, but if you don't have the tools to implement that dream is just going to stay a dream. So dream big, find your passion, go for it, but also learn those tools. So that way you can execute that dream and bring it to reality.
I love that. So for those who are not watching, if you're just listening to the audio podcast, share the website and contact information, things like that.
So you can get all of our information at our website, she'smysister.org. There are just a ton of facts on there. There's also some inspiration on there. People ask all the time, this work is really heavy. It's really dark. How do you continue to do this? And they're right. In this work, we see the work of the enemy all of the time. But on the other hand, you get to see the work of God, and you get to see the beauty of resilience. And your story specifically, we're so blessed to have your story highlighted on our website, because women like you and Deanna Lynn and the others that I have met, I have learned so much, and you have really been the driving force around our inspiration to take our women out of a situation where they're simply surviving to thriving. We love to be able to see what women are capable of doing once they are empowered and given the tools to go out and lead the life that they were designed to lead. Because living in a life of modern day slavery, living a life of prostitution, that is not the life they were designed to live.
No. And that's a great point, is that I forget who said it, but someone said the definition of abuse is taking something that was created for one purpose and using it differently. And I'd never thought about that. And again, I cannot remember who said that, but just relative to people, that, it's someone who is created, and God created this person fearfully and wonderfully and awesomely and designed them for a purpose. And yet when that is turned and used in an evil way, it can only damage that person, right? Their inherent sense of self-worth and self-care, and that I have value as a person. Because if you're being used for a person or exploited in a way that you were never created to be, you can never reach your potential. And it's a painful place to be, on the inside emotionally. So I love that. Yeah, that's a good point you make.
Yes, it is. For women who have been a victim of any type of abuse or exploitation, again, as I said before, everyone's journey is very different, and your path to healing can look very different. I am a survivor of a sex crime. When I was 21 years old, I was assaulted, and it would have been a felony assault, and one would think that I would have gone to law enforcement and I would have pressed charges against my abuser. I did not. In fact, I ended up dating him for a year and a half. And how on earth does that happen? I grew up in a great home. I went to a great school. I had all the resources available to me, but it was one person, one night, one event changed the course of my life. And now, being who I am, I wish I had said something back then. I wish I had taken the steps to seek justice and to begin my journey to healing much sooner. But honestly, it took me decades to even recognize that I was a victim. It took decades. And I'm not alone in that. There are so many women out there who have been victimized, yet they do not see themselves as a victim. They blame themselves. And again, this is why it is so important that we're just having these conversations. One conversation could impact the life of someone who has been abused, and they just don't realize it, or they don't know what to do with it.
I love that. Trisha, thank you so much for just taking time to share your calls, your ministry, and some of the faith and the inspiration and your story behind why this work is mattering. I mean, it's a personal perspective, right? That this can impact people, and they don't necessarily know that they've been impacted. And so it's difficult for us sometimes to know that people around us can be impacted or affected. And we do have to be willing to have those conversations. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So just one more time, flashing up the website for She's My Sister. And again, that's she'smysister.org. You can also contact them directly, email info@she'smysister.org, and you can take the pledge there. So visit the website. That's the place where all of the resources are. All of the information is there, how you can get involved. Even donations and information for getting equipped to make a difference right there, and maybe your community, right? This isn't just a specific geographical calling. This is something that impacts all over the country and even all over the world. So absolutely be willing to get involved. So thank you, Trisha, and thanks everyone for watching today. Talk to you next time.